Nigeria has the potential to become a major player in the global economy by virtue of its human and natural resource endowments. However, this potential has remained relatively untapped over the years. Nigeria's dependence on crude oil for her revenue turned sour when global oil price fell. The economy took a bad shape as the naira tumbled and the nation's economy fell into a recession. However, the present administration is taking steps to address the state of the economy through the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. My guest looks at the feasibility of that plan. Hello there. Thank you for joining us on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuke. The Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, a medium-term plan for 2017 to 2020, has been developed for the purpose of restoring Nigeria's economic growth by looking at developing local production capacity. My guest on this week's edition of the program is the lead director of the Center for Social Justice. But up ahead, President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is tackling the nation's economic challenges with the same vigor with which it is handling the problems of terrorism and corruption after launching the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Take a listen. President Muhammadu Buhari is taking another step to fulfill his election promises to Nigerians. The president is launching the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which will run until 2020. The president says his administration is committed to reviving the economy by repositioning the country from an import-dependent nation to a producing country that can be self-reliant.
Our aim, simply put, is optimize local content and empower local businesses. We seek not just to take the Nigerian economy out of recession, but to place it on a path of sustained, inclusive, and diversified growth.
The plan has three broad strategic objectives: restoring growth of the economy, investing in the Nigerian people, and building a globally competitive economy. It targets to grow the gross domestic product to 7.0% by 2020. The Minister of Budget and National Planning says the document articulates over 60 intervention initiatives that will be implemented over the next 4 years.
It focuses on 5 execution priorities, and which are central to achieving the 7% growth projected by the end of the plan period. These are namely stabilizing the macroeconomic environment, achievement of agriculture and food security, expansion of energy infrastructure, particularly power and petroleum, improving transportation infrastructure, and driving industrialization, principally through local and small business enterprises.
The plan requires the involvement of states and federal lawmakers.
The only thing left we will talk about is implementation. But I believe that implementation not only relies on the delivery unit, I think it relies on all of us. We must make it work. It has to work. We have a great opportunity now with strong leadership and political will to make it work. On behalf of the Senate and members, I want to also pledge that we will make it and make sure it works.
On behalf of the Nigerian Governors Forum, that the 36 governors would take ownership and ensure effective execution at the subnational level, as this is the surest way to achieving the sustainable, inclusive growth.
Already, the president has approved the establishment of a unit in the presidency that will monitor the implementation of the plan.
Your Excellency,
In our interview, the lead director of the Center for Social Justice, Mr. Eze Onyekpere, gives an analysis of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Mr. Eze Onyekpere, you're welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about the Economic Recovery Plan. You heard about it, and it raised optimism in some quarters, and some people, of course, have expressed varied reactions over this. What really is your perspective on this plan?
This is not the first time Nigerians are hearing about plans. We had the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy. We had the 7-point agenda. We have the transformation agenda. And now we have this economic recovery program and growth program, and which is quite late in coming. If you look at that, we've almost lost 2 years of this administration before this plan came on board. So my initial reaction is better late than never. And then looking at the plan in terms of its policy thrust, restoring growth, investing in the people, and creating a competitive economy, it doesn't differ from what we've had before. But there are some fundamental core values which must run over through all the plans. So what I'm saying in essence is that the plan seems to be making some right noises. Okay?
Right noises.
Right noises, quote and unquote.
What do you mean?
Noises in the sense that it's talking about the things every Nigerian will hope to see. That we need to get out of a recession, begin to grow economy, become competitive, build infrastructure, make our education more functional, make less of our women dying during childbirth, make sure people are not dying like they're dying in those days now with meningitis, where somebody says it's because of our sins, and then create an egalitarian society. But beyond that, the question which everybody should be interested in is the how. The policies you have in place to drive them, the human beings ultimately who will drive them, whether they have the knowledge, the skill and the competence and the vision and the zeal to drive them through. So the whole business comes down to when you begin to implement. But then, of course, if you go deeply, you could also find some little issues that you may need to critique the policy about. But I think as a policy stance, if there is that good understanding of the role of government in society, if there are people who are committed, who are honest, who are dedicated, then we are ready to, at least, let me say we are ready to go.
Do you have concerns about many of these the plans, at least you went through them, addressing issues of infrastructure, really addressing these issues, and I mean really addressing the issues of infrastructure and even the economy and then agriculture, take for instance?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that better late than never. We had expected this plan from day one, and a lot of Nigerians have been, and even members of the international community, including International Development Banks, where Nigeria went to borrow, have been asking this persistent question, say, where is your plan? You want money, what do you want to do with it? Let's see the coherence between what you are thinking of in education, agriculture, power sector, how they align. Now, coming specifically to the provisions, if you look at what they are talking about in the power sector, it's not even, it's not a deviation from what has been said before, but also it doesn't fully address the key issues. NEETs, which Obasanjo used to govern between 2003 and 2007, talked about giving Nigeria 10,000 megawatts of power electricity. That was before 2007. And we're in the year of our Lord 2017, and you have the Economic Recovery and Growth Program still talking about 10,000 megawatts. When the installed capacity we have today is over 12,000 megawatts. But the point is, how do you activate that installed capacity beyond between 25 and 30% of it, which we are using today, and we'll also lose a great deal of that. So how do you activate that capacity? Not about 10,000 megawatts. How do you make that 10,000 megawatts fully available and functional so that it can be in your office, in the schools, in the marketplace, in the factories, and in the homes of Nigerians so that they can begin to enjoy? Some of even the targets they set, like in agriculture, talking about self-sufficiency in wheat, rice, tomato. Yeah. Some of them look very, very ambitious because some of the targets are even for this year, 2017, and then 2018.
Many of them 2017 to 2020.
No, 2018 even. So I think they are quite ambitious. They are good. We need to move towards self-sufficiency. But to just tell me that you do it in 2017 or 2018 is something will not be doable.
But is that something wrong? I mean, we talk about the same issues after so many years.
What I'm saying is that the targets must be realistic. And that's why if this was a plan that came in 2015, early 2015, you can now begin to say 2017, 2018. So the government finds out that it has just 2 years. Okay, because even the ones that are doing for 2020 is a surplus age. The tenure of this administration ends in 2019,
yes,
unless re-elected. So even the targets you are setting for 2020, you are not sure whether you will be there. So they simply have just 2017 and 2018, because late 2018 to early 2019, you'll be talking about elections, which they even acknowledge in their projections for growth. There was a dip in the election year, because everybody realizes that governance takes a backseat, and then you begin to move into the election and campaign mode. I also saw a lot being said about the private sector. The things they talked about, for instance, in housing. They talked about government bringing seed funding and raising more money from the private sector. But what I didn't see enough is a continuity of the issues like the National Housing Fund, which was started so many years ago, which, if it had been properly managed, would have helped us to cut the housing deficit and provided a pool of resources from which you can go. Because if you say the private sector should raise 1 trillion, the question becomes, at what rate do you assess that fund? If you are giving it to somebody at double-digit interest rate, 15, 20% or 20-something%, who can afford to borrow at that rate and be able to pay back? So I didn't see quite a lot of continuity of what was already in place to move it to a new level in the housing sector. The infrastructure issue kept also talking about private sector investment. But there's this nebulous thing about private sector investment. Whenever you talk about infrastructure, you're expecting one big man with a huge pool of money. Ask yourself, where is he going to get that money from? Is it from the current banking sector where you get money in 20-something or 30% interest rate? If you use it to build infrastructure, how do you recover? Even if you are charging tolls, how sustainable will it be? Even going back to the electricity or power sector we talked about, I didn't see enough as to change what we have now. For instance, if the central bank brought the 213 billion market stabilization fund, they pulled it down, they expended most of it, although at some point they had to stop. Nothing changed. The government is now bringing out another 701 or 702 billion for the same power sector. And nothing will change, I bet you, after they finish disbursing the money. What is the challenge? You will power to the discos, okay? What 100 naira for them to give to Nigerians, collect tariffs, because that's the main point of feeding the entire value chain. They collect the money for the entire value chain. And when they are returning money, they are returning 30, 25, 30 naira on the average. That means they cannot account for about 70% of the energy they were given. Now, bringing and throwing money at the problem, how does it solve that problem? Bringing another 702 billion naira, how does it solve that problem? Even if you are giving some people comfort. So the real issues about the capacity of those who took over some of these industries, in terms of their managerial capacity, technical capacity, and the financial capacity to turn around this sector, has not been addressed.
The people who took over what?
The power sector.
Okay.
Okay, both the DISCOs and the GENCOs, the private sector operatives who took over. Okay? They don't have the capacity. Most of them don't have the capacity to run that sector. So just saying you are throwing money and you are hoping that you do 10,000 megawatts doesn't solve the problem. The grid is one area which collapses at about 5,000 to 6,000 megawatts put on it. We didn't hear anything we have. We're still dreaming of 10,000 megawatts by 2020.
So right now, basically you say the plan seems okay, though having some loopholes.
Some of the targets are ambitious, while some of the targets don't come up to scratch.
And again, the leaders, the people responsible to make this happen are not there.
I do not see, as presently constituted, I do not see the executive as being in a position to drive these targets, as presently constituted, with utmost respect to them, not intending any disrespect to anybody. In terms of the vision, the larger picture, the larger heart. Because what we see, how do you drive the reforms when by the 4th month of the year, 2017, you don't have an approved 2017 budget? You claim to be still implementing the 2016 budget. This happened last year. It's still happening now. And this is also laying the foundation for lateness in 2018. How do you use that to drive economic reform? How do you use that to drive growth? Now, even part of the fiscal policy postulations they made, which is frightening to some of us, is that they're hoping that by 2020, they will be borrowing more outside and borrowing more locally. I mean, they're going to borrow 60 or 70%.
I was going to even come to the issue of revenues.
Good,
you know,
good.
The fact that we want to increase revenue by 2 trillion.
Yeah, by borrowing mainly, foreign borrowing.
But we will come to that, right? We'll just take a break, and we're still with Mr. Eze Onyekpere, the lead director, Center for Social Justice. We'll be right back on the issues of the Economic Recovery Plan. Stay with us.